Her fist hits the wood like she's striking a coffin lid. The sound jumps off the porch and comes back thin. He opens the door, and dusk lays a hand on her face, dirt on her cheek, hair stuck, a newborn wrapped tight and breathing like a bird. You promised me shelter. I don't make promises. You did once, in front of God. That was years ago. The baby lets out a small, broken cry. His hand loosens on the frame. He looks past her at the yard. She doesn't move. She's all eyes and need, and a memory he tried to bury. He steps back enough for the smell of the house to slip out. Cold stove, old coffee, damp wool. She crosses the threshold. He closes the door, and the lock catches with a tired click. You look thin, he says. You look the same. What comfort? It's not a knife. The lamp takes flame on the second match. Yellow climbs the walls and finds the pale square where a picture hung. She sets the baby on the table and keeps a palm on the small spine. Who sent you? He asks. No one. You could have gone anywhere. There isn't anywhere. He nods at the kettle. Water? Later. Whose is it? Hush. He's sleeping. That's not an answer. It's the only one you get. Heat creeps. She checks the baby's mouth and settles the cloth again. Her knuckles are raw. A silver ring hangs from a string. You married? I was. Widow, then. That word is a hole. I'm standing on the edge of it. He pulls out a chair. Tin cups touch wood. She stares at the steam instead of drinking. The wind outside lifts the rope over the old well and lets it fall. You walked from town? From before town. They'll come looking. They already did. Law? Men with paper. She slides a hand along the table edge until her fingers hit carved initials. His blade did that when he still believed in names. You kept the table, she says. It wouldn't move. You kept the knife? It's somewhere. The knife mattered more. It used to. The baby stirs and sighs. He leans before he can stop himself. What do you need? No pity. I asked for help. A door that shuts. A roof that doesn't leak. A night without boots. You won't hear boots if you're careful. I was careful. Care didn't help. He knots his hands like prayer he forgot. I could put you in a place up the ridge. Quiet. Empty. I want this one. This one is watched. By who? People who matter. Then no one who matters, she says, and the room shifts toward her. You didn't answer about the father. You didn't answer the promise. He shuts his eyes. Old light, small church, a dry river. I was afraid. Of me. Of keeping something I couldn't carry. You carried worse. I carried nothing. Not true, she says, voice cracking and holding. He looks at the child until the rest of the room falls away. The blanket, he says. I know that cloth. My grandmother made it. She teaches you to hide? She taught me to wait. He reaches out. She doesn't stop him. The tiny fist closes on his finger like a snare. He draws a breath like he's been struck. I can't do this. You already are. I can't. You can. That was years ago. Years don't erase words. He hears the stove tick, the well rope slap, and the baby breathes. The sounds braid into a road he knows. He swallows. He nods once. It feels heavy. Stay, he says. For the night. For as long as it takes. What does it take? Me keeping what I said. She lifts the baby and waits for the room to decide. He goes to the door and slides the bolt gently. When he turns back, there's dust on his boots and something like hope he doesn't want her to see. Thank you, she says. Don't thank me yet. I already did. In front of God. He adds wood to the stove. The flame holds. The baby sighs. Easy now. The room takes the weight. The door is closed, and his fear is quieter than it was. You can take the bed, he says. You take it. I'll be fine. I'm not here to hurt you. I know. Say it like you mean it. I know. She rests her head against the wall. Boots will come anyway. Let them find a shut door. Let them find a man who keeps his word. He looks at the lock, then at her, then at the tiny fist inside the quilt he remembers. I will, he says. Outside, the rope on the well swings once and goes still, as if some patient throat has decided to wait till morning. The door shuts like a gunshot in a quiet church. The sound hangs there, then falls flat against the bare walls. She stands just inside, holding the baby like he might vanish if her grip loosens. He doesn't touch her coat, doesn't take the blanket, just watches her boots shed dirt onto the warped floorboards. What happened to your place? It's not mine anymore. Who took it? Men with paper, the kind signed in offices. He glances toward the table, then toward the window. You knew they were coming? They always come. You could have fought it. I did. It didn't matter. The air feels stale, like the house forgot people could breathe in it. She moves toward the stove without asking, lowering herself into the chair nearest it. The stove's cold belly hollow. He strikes a match, and the sound is louder than it should be. Flame catches slowly, reluctantly. You eat? He asks. Not yet. You look like you haven't. I didn't come for food. Then why? She looks at the stove instead of him. I told you already. That was about shelter. I'm asking, why now? It was time. That's not an answer. It's the one I have. The baby stirs, a small twitch under the blanket. His jaw shifts when he hears it. She pulls the cloth tighter. The wind scratches at the boards outside like it's trying to get in. You've been walking for a long time, he says. Since morning. From town? Past it. You passed the store? Yes. You stop? No. Why not? No coin. He leans against the wall, arms folded. You could have asked. Would you have given? Maybe. Then I didn't want to find out. His eyes drift over her, not in a way that weighs her down, but like he's measuring how much is left of her. She shifts the baby in her arms. He watches her hands move. Boy or girl? Girl. She got a name? Yes. You gonna tell me? Not yet. The stove pops. Heat starts to seep, slow, into the edges of the room. She closes her eyes for a breath. You live alone now? Yes. How long? Long enough. No one to help? No one I want. She nods once. It suits you. What does? Being alone. It didn't used to. The kettle whistles low, then higher. He pulls it off before it can scream. Sets 2 cups on the table, fills them without asking. The steam curls up between them. You can take the corner room, he says. I'll stay here. It's warmer there. I like the cold. You always did. I like knowing I can feel something. The baby makes a soft sound, almost a hum. He watches her rock her without looking down. She's quiet, he says. She's learning. Learning what? How to keep her head low. That's no way for a child. It's the only way she'll live. The matchbox slides across the table toward her. She doesn't take it. I'm not staying long, she says. You just asked for shelter. I asked for tonight. That's all? That's all I'm owed. He sits across from her. The table feels too big for 2 people. You didn't have to come here, he says. Yes, I did. You could have gone anywhere else. I told you, there isn't anywhere. They drink without talking. The clock on the wall ticks like it's mocking them for keeping time. She stares into her cup as though something might rise from it. You still see him? She asks. Not in years. Have you heard of him? Now and then. You look when you hear? Sometimes. You listen. I try not to. She shifts the baby again. The quilt slips enough for him to see the tiny hand. He looks away fast. That quilt, he says. Yes. You bring it everywhere? Everywhere I'm not wanted. The stove throws a little more heat. Shadows move across the walls. He watches them instead of her. Do you need anything? I'll manage. I didn't ask if you could. I asked if you needed it. I need this roof until morning. I need you not to ask me more than I can give. Fair. He stands, walks to the door, and checks the bolt without looking at her. The baby's breath is steady now, barely a sound at all. You sure you don't want the corner room? He says. I'll be fine here. You always say that. And I'm still here. He doesn't answer. She leans back in the chair, eyes half closed. The house creaks, settling under its own weight. He moves past her toward the stove, lays another log inside, and shuts the door soft. The fire answers with a low, patient sound. Her fork scrapes the tin plate, and he flinches. The sound runs through him like a nail dragged over glass. She doesn't look up, just keeps moving the food around like she's not sure if she's eating or stalling. The baby sleeps in a bundle on the bench beside her, chest rising under the worn quilt. You haven't aged, she says. You have. Graves will do that. He hesitates, watching her eyes for the place that sentence came from. Was it him? We're not saying his name. He leans back, the chair groaning under his weight. I need to know. You already do. The stove ticks in the corner, holding on to heat. Outside, the wind shifts something metal against the wall, a soft clang that doesn't belong to this room. You think he's still out there? He says. I think men like him never leave. They just change doors. You came here because of him. I came here because you have walls. Walls won't keep him out. They kept me out for years. The fork stops moving. She pushes the plate away, appetite gone. You still carry the knife? She asks. Somewhere. You'll need it. His eyes drift to the baby. She's got your mouth. She's got his eyes. He looks away hard like the words struck clean. You don't know that. I do. You sure you should have come? Nowhere else to go. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got. The silence spreads until it feels like part of the meal. He lifts his cup, takes a drink just to break it. You remember the day at the bridge? She asks. I remember everything. That's not what I asked. I remember the river was high. I remember you wouldn't look at me. I was watching the water. You were watching for him. The baby shifts in her sleep, a soft whimper catching in her throat. She lays a hand over the quilt without looking down. You ever wonder what would have happened if we left? No. Why not? Because we didn't. The room feels smaller now. She takes the quilt from the baby and folds it once before laying it on the table between them. You recognize it, she says. Yes. Are you going to tell me what you see when you look at it? I see your grandmother's hands. I see you carrying it when you come back from... He stops. From where? You know where. We're not saying his name, she repeats, voice flat. It's not the name that matters. It's what he did. That's all that's ever mattered. He looks at the quilt like it's holding more than thread. You kept it clean. I tried. Even after... Especially after... He pushes his plate away, appetite gone too. You think the sheriff knows you're here? I think the sheriff knows everything. He worked for him once. He still does. They both sit back from the table at the same time, like the air just got too close. You want me to say it, he says. Number I want you to remember without saying it. That's the same thing. No, it's not. He runs a hand over his jaw. What happens when he finds out about the baby? He won't. You don't believe that. I don't care if I believe it. He leans forward, elbows on the table. If you stay, you're going to have to fight. I've been fighting. Not here. Then show me how. The baby sighs in her sleep. He glances at her, softer now. She's small. She won't stay small. That's what I'm afraid of. She studies him, eyes narrowing. You haven't changed. You just got quieter. You haven't changed either. You just got tired. I was tired back then. Not like now. The stove pops, a sudden sound that pulls them both toward it. Neither moves. Do you still believe in God? She asks. I believe in certain promises. You kept any? I'm keeping one right now. She holds his gaze, the quilt between them like a line neither wants to cross. Then keep it. I will. The wind catches the door and rattles it against the frame. His eyes flick toward it, then back to her. Are you going to sleep here tonight? Yes. In that chair? Yes. Suit yourself. He stands, carries his plate to the counter. She doesn't move the quilt? He glances at it again before turning away. You think he'll come for it? He asks over his shoulder. He'll come for her. He nods once as if that's an answer he's been expecting. The clock on the wall ticks like a slow heartbeat. The baby's breathing evens out again. She rests her hand over the quilt, and neither of them speaks for a long while. The baby starts crying just as Boots hit the porch. The sound stitches itself to the steps tight and mean, and everything inside the room holds its breath. He moves to the door. She picks the baby up, presses the small face to her shoulder, and rocks without looking at him. 3 knocks land, spaced like a warning. He opens, just enough to frame the hat, the coat, the polished badge. The sheriff's mouth folds into a line. Evening. Mind if I step in? We're busy, he says. The sheriff leans, peering past him. You're harboring trouble. I can smell it. Then you better get out before you choke, she says, voice steady. The sheriff's gaze slides to her. Now, that's a welcome. "You have been away a while, ma'am. Folks forget their manners when they wander." "Some of us never had the luxury," she says. "That's so?" he answers. "That's so." The baby hiccups, quiets, then starts again. The sheriff shifts a boot so the spur ticks. "Whose child?" "No one of yours," she says. It's everyone's concern when trouble's involved. He holds the door with one hand and keeps his body in the gap. "Say your piece or ride on." "My piece is simple," the sheriff says. "There's whispers. A widow turned up. A man taken with charity. Papers unsettled. A quilt I've seen before." Her shoulders tighten. "You don't know what quilts." "I know who gave that pattern to the county fair. I know who bought the lot afterward. I know whose men carry the papers." "Don't say his name," she says. The sheriff's eyes shine like wet stone. "Names help keep records clean." "Not in this house," he says. The sheriff studies him. "Are you aiming to make this your business?" "It's already mine." "You're short on friends." "I only need a few." He tips his head, amused. "You won't find them in town." "I'm not looking there." The wind slides down the porch and into the crack. He smells rain. The sheriff looks at the table behind them, sees the tin plates, the cup, the folded quilt. His eyes catch and hold. "That there is old work," he says softly. "It's mine," she answers. "Brought from your place." "It's not my place anymore." "What happened to your place?" he asks, almost gentle. "It's not mine anymore." "Who took it?" "Men with paper, the kind signed in offices." The sheriff nods like he's filing it away, though he already knows. "There's an order here. Do you remember the order?" "I remember who pays for it," she says. A slow smile cuts his face. "This county doesn't take kindly to harboring fugitives, lost things, or borrowed children." "She's not borrowed." "Then she claimed. By who?" "That question's above your pay," she says. The sheriff angles his jaw toward the man. "You sure you want to stand with her?" "I'm standing." "That's an answer I can serve on." "Serve it somewhere else," he says. The sheriff glances toward the dark yard, the road beyond the windbreak. "You hear the gate today?" "I heard nothing." "I heard it twice," the sheriff says. "Means riders. Means questions. Means I'll be back with paper instead of, manners." "You came without either," she says. He laughs once, short. "I'll take that under advisement." He lifts his gaze to the ceiling as if considering the roof, the years, the prayers trapped under it. "I'll be seeing you." "You already are," she says. He taps the brim, then pauses, letting his eyes return to the quilt like a hand lingering on a bruise. "Keep that covered," he says. Not quite a command. "Close the door from your side," the man replies. The sheriff steps back. Rain begins in a hush. Boots descend the steps, 1, 2, 3, and the sound fades into wet gravel. He shuts the door fast and turns the lock. The room exhales. She doesn't move for a count of 10. Then she lays the baby down, palms smoothing the quilt like she's putting dust back on a shelf. "He used to work for him," she says. "I know," he answers. "He still does." "I know that too." He looked at the quilt like it was a deed. "It is, in their minds." "He'll bring more," she says. "He will." "Are you afraid?" "I'm prepared." That's another word for scared. "Sometimes," he says. The baby sighs, a small thumb finding her mouth. She quiets. The stove ticks as the fire pulls harder. Rain writes on the windows. He drags a chair close to the table. "You could have told him to go to hell," she says. "I did," he says. "Not loud enough." Loud invites bullets. Silence invites chains. He watches her face settle into that hard line he knows. "You came here knowing he'd follow." "I came here because you keep your word." "Do I?" "You open the door." "Opening is the easy part." "Then do the hard part," she says. "What's that?" "Keep it shut." He nods, rises, throws the bolt twice, drags the table to the door, and sets the rifle within reach. The house listens for hoofbeats. Her voice cuts the night air. "It's still there, isn't it?" He's halfway to the barn with a lantern when he stops. "Don't go near it." "You never filled it in." "Some things stay open. Some things should be buried." The wind runs through the grass in low waves, carrying the smell of damp earth. The lantern's light catches her face, pale, steady, holding something heavier than the question she asked. She shifts the baby higher on her hip and starts walking toward the fence line. "I mean it," he says. "You said that before." "This time's different." "Not to me." The barn looms behind them, boards creaking in the gusts. Beyond it, the ground dips where the well sits in shadow. He follows, each step heavier than the last. You shouldn't bring her near it, he says. She's asleep. That's not the point. Then tell me the point. He doesn't. The boards of the old well cap come into view, worn silver gray, edges warped. Rope dangles into the dark throat, swaying with the wind. You kept the rope, she says. Couldn't pull it free. You tried. Once. What stopped you? What's down there? Her eyes stay on the opening. I need to know if it's still the same. It's worse. The baby makes a soft sound, half a whimper. She pats her back without looking away from the well. You could have covered it properly. I told you. Some things stay open. That's not wisdom. That's fear. It's caution. Caution's just fear dressed up polite. His jaw tightens. You think filling it in erases what happened. Number. But leaving it open means it's still happening. The rope swings again, slow. He glances into the dark mouth, then back at her. You came all the way out here just to pick this fight? I came to see if you've changed. You already know the answer. I hoped I was wrong. The wind drops for a moment, and the silence feels heavier than the air. The baby shifts, a faint cry spilling into the open. The sound is carried, pulled, and for a second it feels like the well is swallowing it whole. He steps closer to her, to the child. Take her inside. Not until you tell me. There's nothing to tell. Your eyes say something different. He holds her gaze, and for a breath, the only thing between them is the black mouth of the well. Then he says, You don't want to know. I already do. No, you think you do. Say it. He shakes his head once, slow. If I say it, you'll never sleep under this roof again. She adjusts her grip on the baby. Then I'll sit by the stove all night and know the truth. The rope swings again, catching the lantern light for a blink. Something shifts in the shadows below, or maybe it's just the wind playing tricks. You hear it sometimes, she asks. Not in years. Liar. His hand tightens on the lantern's handle. You think I like living with it? I think you'd rather live with it than face it. And you'd rather drag a child out here than leave it buried. She's safer if I know. You're wrong. She looks at him for a long time, then back at the well. I'll ask one more time. Is it still there? Yes. The baby lets out another cry, louder this time, and he flinches as though the sound hit him. Inside, he says again. She nods, but not because he told her. She turns away from the well, carrying the baby close, the wind snapping at her skirt. He follows, glancing back once at the rope swaying in the dark. When they reach the porch, she stops. You'll have to face it someday. I already did. Number you just walked away from it. He says nothing, stepping past her into the house. The lantern light spills across the floorboards as she comes in behind him, shutting out the wind. But even with the door closed, the faint echo of the baby's cry seems to hang in the air, stretched thin, like it's still falling into the dark. He meets her eyes, and she knows without words, whatever's in that well isn't just water, and it isn't done with either of them. The letter smells faintly of smoke and cedar. She finds it tucked under a stack of dull papers in the top drawer of his desk, the kind you keep not because you need them, but because throwing them away would mean admitting they mattered once. The paper is yellow at the edges, the fold creases soft from years of being handled. You wrote this for me, she says, her voice cutting through the quiet. He's by the stove, feeding in another log, but he turns at once. His eyes narrow when he sees what's in her hands. I never sent it. Why? Because it would have meant I had to follow through. You didn't want to? I didn't think I could. She glances down at the handwriting. His, sharp in some strokes, hesitant in others. You promised land. I did. And safety. Yes. And... She pauses, eyes narrowing as she reads, payment in blood if needed. He walks over, slow, like approaching a skittish animal. That was a long time ago. It's dated after I left. I wrote it knowing you'd never see it. Then why keep it? Because part of me wanted you to. Her thumb traces the words, each one a splinter from the past. You thought writing it was enough? Number, but sending it would have made it real. And it really meant risk. Real meant death. She looks up at him. For who? For both of us. The baby stirs in the blanket on the table, tiny legs shifting. She moves closer to settle her, then lays the letter beside the quilt. You could have changed things, she says. I could have made them worse. You could have kept your word. I'm keeping it now. She shakes her head. This letter says something different. He leans against the desk, eyes on the floor. You don't know what it cost to write that. Then tell me. You wouldn't believe me. Try me. His jaw works as though the words want out, but the years won't let them. It wasn't just land, he says finally. It was his land, the land under his house, under his feet. I meant to take it from him. She stiffens. You would have... Yes. And that's why I didn't send it. Because if I'd tried, one of us would be in the ground now. One of us already is, she says, voice low. They both glance at the baby when she lets out a soft sigh. Neither speaks for a moment. She picks up the letter again. You know what I hear in this? What? That there was a time you believed you could fight him. I still can. But you don't. Because fighting him in the open means losing. And hiding means what? It means you're here, breathing. She folds the letter slow and neat, as if it might tear if rushed. You could have told me. I didn't want you to know I'd thought about it. You think ignorance keeps people safe? Sometimes. Number it just leaves them alone. He looks at her for a long moment, then sits in the chair across from her. That's what you felt. Every day since I left. The fire pops, sending a thin curl of smoke into the air. She tucks the folded letter into the baby's blanket, sliding it between layers of worn fabric. What are you doing? He asks. Keeping it. It's not worth anything now. It's worth knowing. He rubs a hand over his face. You think that paper's going to change what's coming. Number, but it reminds me you once thought you could stand. I'm standing now. Then stand taller. His mouth twitches, not quite a smile. You don't make things easy. Neither does he. They sit in silence. The fire's glow stretching shadows across the floor. She rests her hand on the baby, the other over the blanket where the letter hides. Why smoke and cedar? She asks suddenly. What? This letter. It smells like smoke and cedar. I wrote it the night after the fire at the mill. I was sleeping in the loft under cedar shingles. The smoke was still in the air. That was the same week he... Yes. Her eyes harden. You should have sent it. I know. The wind rattles the door. He doesn't move. She watches him as if measuring whether the man who wrote that letter still exists somewhere inside the one sitting across from her. When the baby stirs again, she smooths her hand over her head. I'll keep it close, she says. That could get you killed. Or keep me alive. Or both. She meets his gaze. Some things are worth both. He nods once, and neither of them looks away. Outside, the wind dies, but the smell of smoke and cedar lingers in the room, curling around them like something that refuses to fade. The baby's wail slices through the walls like a blade. It pulls him up from half-sleep, heart already beating fast, the sound cutting deeper the longer it goes. The fire in the stove is low, throwing thin light across the room. She's already at the table, rocking the child hard enough to make the chair legs creak. He looks like you, she says. You're lying. Look at him. I don't want to. The baby's face is red, mouth open wide, fists tight against the air. The cry is raw, too loud for the small body it's coming from. He stands in the doorway between rooms, hands loose at his sides, eyes fixed on the floor. Why won't you? She asks. Because I know what I'll see. You think not looking changes it? It might. It doesn't. The cry shifts into a sharp, staccato rhythm, each burst like it's pulling something out of the walls. He steps closer without meaning to, the sound dragging him forward. What are you trying to do? He asks. Tell you the truth. Why now? Because you need to hear it. I don't. Yes, you do. She adjusts the quilt, pulling it tighter around the baby's body. You think he came after me because of me, she says. But it wasn't just me. I don't want to hear this. You will. He runs a hand over his mouth, eyes flicking to the small face for just a second before pulling away. He looks like you, she says again, softer this time. That doesn't mean anything. It means everything. The baby's voice cracks, falling into hiccups, then surging back into the long, sharp wail. She rocks slower now, her gaze never leaving him. You can tell yourself whatever you want, she says. But you see it. I see what I'm afraid of. Which is that I'm responsible. The words sit heavy between them. She doesn't move, just keeps the rhythm going, back and forth, back and forth. "You're not hearing me," she says. "I'm hearing too much." The fire pops in the stove, a sound small enough to be swallowed by the next burst of crying. "Come here," she says. "No. You can't hide in the doorway forever." "I can try." She leans forward, pressing her cheek to the baby's head, murmuring something he can't make out. The crying eases for a breath, then returns, thinner, but still sharp. "Take him," she says. "What?" "Hold him." "I can't." "You can." "No." Her voice drops. "If you can't, then everything I've done to get here was a waste." That hits him harder than the crying. He steps forward, takes the child clumsily as if the weight might burn him. The crying spikes for a moment, then steadies into a low, ragged rhythm. The small hands flail, then grip his shirt. He looks down, not at the eyes, but at the hair, the curve of the cheek, the lines he thinks he recognizes. His breath shortens. He holds on a moment too long before passing the baby back. "You see it," she says. "I see something I can't undo." "You don't have to undo it. You just have to carry it." He shakes his head and turns away. The air in the room feels close, heavy with smoke and heat and the ghost of what she said. He grabs his coat from the peg and steps outside without looking back. The cold takes him in a rush, cutting clean through the warmth still clinging to his skin. The night is sharp and still. The stars fixed like nails above him. The sound of the crying follows, muffled now by the walls, but still there, still pulling. He walks past the barn without thinking, boots crunching over frost-hardened ground. The moonlight spreads across the yard in long silver lines, catching on the rope above. The well. It sways slightly, though the air is still. He stops at the edge, looking down into the black mouth. No sound comes from it, but something about the way the rope moves makes him think of the baby's cry, stretched thin and pulled deep. He grips the edge of the old board, staring into the dark until his hands ache from the cold. Behind him, the door opens. The wail is louder now, carried on the wind. He doesn't turn. He keeps his eyes on the well, the moonlight on the rope, and the silence waiting just below it. Hoofbeats pound the frozen dirt like war drums. The sound rises over the quiet, steady and deliberate, coming from the road beyond the gate. He's already at the window when the horses come into view. Two dark shapes moving through the thin gray of dawn. Breath streams from their mouths in heavy clouds, their hooves grinding frost into sharp splinters. "They're not from town," he says. She doesn't lift her head from the table. "I know." "Are you expecting them?" "I expect all of them." The riders pass through the gate without slowing. He reaches for his coat by the door. She doesn't move, only shifts the baby closer in the quilt. "Stay in here," he says. "Where else would I go?" The porch boards creak under his boots. The cold hits his face sharp. The men stop 10 yards from the steps, their horses restless, stamping at the frozen ground. One rider leans forward in the saddle, voice loud and sure. "She belongs to us." "She's not property," he says. The man smiles, thin and mean. "Everyone's property to someone." From the doorway behind him, her voice comes low. "Tell them I'm not here." He doesn't turn. "You've got the wrong place," he says to the riders. The second man speaks, his tone heavier. "We've got the right place. She left owing, and debts don't vanish because a man says so." "She owes you nothing." "Not us," the first man says. "Him." The name isn't spoken, but it lands between them like a thrown stone. "She's under my roof now," he says. "Roofs burn," the man replies. His hand curls around the railing. "Are you looking to start something?" "We came to an end." "She's not going anywhere with you." "That's not your choice." Inside, she shifts her weight, rocking the baby. Her voice is tight. "They won't leave easily." "I can make them," he says. The first man tilts his head, watching closely. "You think you can keep her? You can't keep the tide out forever. It finds a way in." "Then let it come," he says. The second rider spits into the frost. "You talk big for someone with 2 against 1. I've done worse odds." They glance at each other, an unspoken decision moving between them. The first man leans forward again. "You give her up now. No trouble. You keep her. Trouble comes for both of you." "She's staying," he says, voice flat. "You'll regret it." "I regret a lot of things, not this." The horses toss their heads, snorting in the cold. "You're protecting something that's already marked," the first man says. Then maybe you should think about what happens when you try to take it. The man's smile fades. We'll be back. Bring more if you think you need them, he says. The riders don't answer. They pull their reins, turning the horses slow enough to make it clear they're not leaving in defeat. At the gate, the first man looks over his shoulder. We don't knock, he says. I don't either, he answers. The gate creaks as it swings shut. He waits until their silhouettes fade into the pale horizon before turning back into the house. She's still standing near the door, the baby's head tucked under her chin. They'll be back, she says. I know. And more with them. I told them to bring more. That's not a joke. It wasn't. She moves to the table, laying the baby down on the quilt. They're not bluffing. Neither am I. Her eyes stay on his face. You're not afraid of them? I'm afraid of losing what's in this house. That's the same thing. He shakes his head. Number afraid of them means I'd open the door. And you won't? I won't. Her gaze drifts to the windows. You can't watch everyone. I can try. He hangs his coat on the peg, checks the rifle propped against the wall. The click of the latch as he sets it ready echoes in the still air. You've got until they come back to decide if you're staying, he says. I decided the night I knocked. That was before you saw how far they'd ride for you. They're not riding for me, she says. They're riding for him. He doesn't argue. The baby sighs in her sleep, tiny fingers curling from the blanket. She tucks them back in. They'll find a way to get close, she says. Then we make it hurt to try. She studies him for a long moment. You've changed. Not enough, he says. The dawn light pushes across the floorboards, pale and cold. Somewhere beyond the barn, the faint echo of hooves still clings to the air, not yet ready to fade. She slams her palm on the table hard enough to rattle the plates. The baby stirs in the quilt but doesn't cry, just lets out a small sigh before settling again. Her eyes are locked on his, sharp and unblinking. You think I walked here to run again? You'll get killed, he says. Then I'll die under a roof that ain't theirs. He leans back in his chair, the wood creaking under him. You don't have to prove anything to me. This ain't about you. It is if you're staying here. She shakes her head, breathing hard. I came here because I knew you wouldn't hand me over. If I thought you'd ask me to leave, I'd have kept walking. I'm not asking, I'm telling you what's coming. I know what's coming. I've known about it for years. That doesn't make you ready for it. I've been ready since the day I left. He runs a hand over his jaw, eyes flicking to the rifle leaning by the door. You think those men at the gate were just trying to scare you? They were trying to measure you. They were measuring you. Let 'em, she says. They'll see I don't scare easily. He studies her for a long moment. That's the same stubbornness you had back then. And you're the same man who thought leaving things alone would make them go away. Sometimes it works, not with him. The room feels tighter now, the air thick with the weight of his silence. He glances at the baby, who started to fidget, small hands working their way out of the blanket. She doesn't need to grow up in this. She won't grow up at all if I leave her behind. I could take her somewhere safe. There's nowhere safe. You know that. His eyes drop to the floor. You're making it harder than it needs to be. No, she says. I'm keeping it exactly as hard as it is. The baby lets out a soft, uncertain sound. She bends, scooping her up, rocking her against her chest. Have you ever thought about what it takes to keep breathing in a place like this? She asks. Every day. Then you know why I'm not moving again. He stands, pacing toward the stove, then back to the table. If they come back with more men, they will. I can't promise I can hold them off. Then don't promise. Just try. The baby's small hand stretches toward him, fingers opening and closing. He hesitates, then reaches out. Her grip is surprisingly strong for something so small, curling around his finger like a rope. She trusts you, the woman says quietly. That's dangerous. It's necessary. He looks at the child's face for a long moment, then at her. I don't know how this ends. Neither do I, she says. But I know where it ends if I run. He pulls his hand back slowly, the baby's fingers loosening one by one. I can give you a day, maybe 2. After that, you're on your own. I've been on my own longer than you think. You don't have to be. She shakes her head. That's not how this works. You help me now. It paints a mark on you. That mark's already there. She studies him. Then maybe you're braver than I thought. Or dumber. Doesn't matter. You open the door. He sits again, leaning forward with his forearms on the table. If you're staying, you need to understand something. When they come, it's not going to be clean. There's no talking them down. I didn't come here to talk. You came here because you thought I'd stand with you. I didn't think so. I knew. He lets out a slow breath. You're betting a lot on someone who's failed before. You didn't fail me. You just stopped too soon. The baby yawns, a small, tight movement that makes her nose wrinkle. He watches her, and something in his expression softens just for a second. She's small, he says. She's all I've got. You're not afraid for her. I'm terrified for her, but fear's not going to get her a future. He leans back, the chair tipping slightly before settling again. You ever think maybe you're just tired of running, and that's what this is really about? Of course I am. But tired doesn't mean weak. No, he says. It means you fight differently. She nods slowly. Then let's fight. The words hang there, simple and solid. He studies her, weighing them, then glances again at the rifle by the door. All right, he says finally. All right what? All right, we fight. She exhales, almost a laugh, but not quite. That's the first thing you've said tonight that makes sense. He reaches for the kettle, pouring 2 cups without asking. The steam rises between them, curling in the space like a promise neither of them can take back now. Tomorrow, he says, I'll fix the fence at the gate. Give us more time if they come. They'll come. Then we'll be ready. She sips her drink, the baby dozing again in her arms. I hope you mean that. I do, he says. Even if it kills me. Her eyes hold his. It might. I've been expecting that for a long time. They drink in silence after that. The only sound is the slow tick of the clock and the baby's quiet breathing. Outside, the first pale light of morning reaches the gate, falling on the frozen ground where hoofprints still mark the dirt. Her voice is steady, but her hands shake. The baby sleeps heavy in her arms, the quilt pulled tight around tiny shoulders. They stand together at the edge of the well, the rope dangling into black nothingness below. It's not just water down there, she says. He looks at the dark mouth, then back at her. I know. You helped him. His breath catches, and for a long moment he says nothing. And I've been paying for it every day since. He closes his eyes, the weight of the past settling like stone in his chest. I never wanted that. She doesn't flinch. But you let it happen. I didn't have a choice. You always have a choice. His hands grip the rough wood, knuckles white. Sometimes the choice is which darkness to live with. She tilts the baby against her shoulder and looks at him straight. You chose silence. I thought silence meant survival. It meant betrayal. The rope creaks, swaying with the cold wind, like a slow breath from the well itself. The night holds them both in its quiet, but the truth between them burns loud. You remember the night? She asks, voice low. How could I forget? He replies. She steps closer, voice barely above a whisper. They threw her in. Your sister. She was barely 14. He looks away, shame burning in his eyes. I wasn't strong enough. Strong enough to stop him. Number strong enough to stop what came after. The silence. He nods. The silence. She lets out a breath, the baby shifting against her. I thought if I stayed away, it would stay buried. And it didn't. Number, it grew. It poisoned everything. We were children. Her voice cracks just slightly. He was a man who thought no one could touch him. And you found a way. I survived. He looks at her, something fierce lighting his eyes. You always did. She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. And I brought this, she says, touching the baby's head, to make sure it never happens again. He reaches out, gently brushing the quilt. She's the proof. Proof of what we lost. And what we still have to fight for. The wind picks up, swirling leaves and dry grass around their feet. The rope swings slowly, casting long shadows. You can't bury it, she says. Not really. No, he agrees. Some things stay open to remind us, to warn us, to make sure we don't forget. She looks down at the well, then back at him. We're bound by it, by the past, and by what we choose to do now. He takes a deep breath, steadying himself. We don't have to carry it alone anymore. Number we don't. The baby stirs, reaching out with a tiny hand, as if asking for a future no one can take away. He meets her gaze and nods. Then we stand together. Together, she agrees. The well waits, dark and endless, but the weight between them feels lighter. Whatever's buried will always be there, but now, so will they. The night folds around them, holding secrets and promises both. She steps onto the porch with the baby in her arms and a shotgun at her side. The morning is cold, sharp enough to make the breath catch in the chest, but the weight of the weapon feels familiar, solid against her hip. Her eyes don't leave the road, where the dust stirs in the distance. The sound of hooves is still a few minutes off, but she hears it, a warning echoing through the empty space between them. Her grip tightens, adjusting the baby's weight. The cold air bites into her skin, but she doesn't flinch. The men are coming again. He stands at the door behind her, the rifle in his hand, a steadying presence in the stillness. He knows what she's about to do, but there's no stopping it now. She's already made her choice. The first man appears, riding in with the same hard look, the same posture. His eyes find her. First, sharp and calculating. The second man follows, pulling his horse to a stop behind the first. They've come for her. She stands tall, her voice breaking the silence before they can speak. I'm not going anywhere. The first man looks at her, then at the rifle resting against the doorframe, before his gaze settles on the shotgun at her side. You gonna shoot with him in your arms? He asks, his tone mocking. You think I won't? She replies. Her voice is steady, and the answer carries weight behind it. He hesitates, but only for a moment. The second man shifts in his saddle, eyes narrowing. I'm not asking for a fight, the first man says, but you've made your stand. Now you'll pay for it. You're not taking her, she says, tightening her grip on the baby. The infant stirs, as if sensing the tension in the air, but stays quiet, secure in her arms. Why don't you just hand her over, the second man adds, his voice rough. Make this easy. Her eyes flick between the two of them, calculating, watching their movements, the subtle shifts in their posture that tell her everything she needs to know. They're not here for mercy. Not this time. I didn't come here to make things easy, she says, taking a slow step forward. The first man looks at her, his lips curling into something between a sneer and a frown. You're making a mistake. She raises the shotgun, the weight of it comforting. She keeps it level, never pointing it directly at them, but it's clear she's ready. Her stance is firm, her gaze unwavering. You don't know what you're walking into, the first man warns. I know exactly what's coming, she says, and I'm ready for it. They exchange a look, the kind that only comes when two people know they're about to reach the end of a long road. The second man dismounts, boots hitting the ground with a soft thud. You can't stop us, he says, voice low. We're coming for what's ours. Her hand shifts slightly, fingers tightening around the stock of the shotgun. The wind picks up, ruffling her hair, but she doesn't budge. She's telling the truth. The first man mutters to the second, his voice harder now, less certain. The second man looks at him, then back at her. Then we'll make her lie. He takes a step forward, and that's when she moves, stepping into the gap between them and the baby, blocking their path. The tension rises in the air, thick and raw, hanging just below the surface like a storm waiting to break. I'm not running, she says, and neither are you. They stand there, the three of them, in the cold morning air. The first man's hand twitches toward his holster, but he doesn't draw. Not yet. She can hear the baby's soft breaths, the faint sound of her tiny heartbeat echoing through the quiet. The world feels too still, too close, like everything is on the edge of snapping. You're really willing to die for this? The second man asks, his voice almost a sneer. I'm willing to die for her, she says, her voice tight, every word biting through the air. The first man looks at her for a long moment, the weight of her words sinking in. Slowly, his hand falls away from his holster and he steps back, eyes still fixed on her, but no longer with the same intensity. Get on your horse, he says to the second man. You sure? The second man asks, voice laced with doubt. Get on your horse. They mount their horses without a word, the second man throwing one last glance her way. The first man doesn't look back at her as he pulls his reins and turns his horse. They ride off slowly, their silhouettes fading against the pale horizon. She doesn't lower the shotgun until they're completely out of sight, their dust disappearing into the morning haze. Only then does she step back, her shoulders sagging with the release of breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Behind her, he steps onto the porch, rifle still in hand, but the tension has faded from his face. "That was stupid," he says, but there's something else in his voice, a hint of admiration. "I didn't have a choice," she answers, her voice quieter now. He doesn't reply, but the way his gaze lingers on her speaks volumes. They stand together, the baby still in her arms, watching the road where the men had ridden off. The sound of hooves fades, but the sheriff's silhouette waits beyond the gate. Neither of them speaks of it, but they both know. They've bought themselves a little more time, but just barely. The sheriff's hand hovers near his gun, then drops. The morning air is still. The only sound is the faint crackle of the fire inside. His eyes flick to the door, to the windows, to the small rifle leaning against the wall. He steps onto the porch with quiet deliberation, boots leaving a soft echo against the boards. She doesn't move, just stands there, the baby cradled gently in her arms, watching him with that steady gaze. "You know why I'm here," the sheriff says, his voice low but firm. She doesn't respond immediately. Instead, she adjusts the baby's blanket, smoothing the fabric over the child's tiny form. The baby stirs slightly but doesn't wake, just sighs, the kind of sigh that fills the space with a quiet, unspoken understanding. "I do," she says finally, her voice calm but carrying something heavy. "And I'm going to tell you what you need to hear." He shifts his weight, eyes scanning her, the house behind her, the land stretching out beyond. "You think speaking the truth is going to change anything?" he asks. "No," she replies, "but it'll make you listen." The sheriff doesn't answer right away. He stands there, watching her, the weight of the years between them hanging like a storm cloud. She knows what he's thinking. He's already made up his mind. It's not about the truth. It never was. It's about control, about power. But something in her is done with hiding. "The well's still there," she says, finally breaking the silence. He stiffens, a flicker of something crossing his face. "I didn't come here for this." "You didn't come here for the truth either," she says, her gaze unwavering. "But it's the only thing I've got left to give." The sheriff steps closer, his eyes narrowing. "You think you can make me care about what's at the bottom of that hole?" "I don't need you to care," she replies. "I need you to understand." He looks down at the ground, jaw tight, then back up to her. "You don't get it, do you? You think that well is the worst thing in this town?" "It is to me," she says, her voice firm. "It's what he left behind, and it's what you helped him bury." He flinches, the truth hitting harder than anything else. His eyes flick to the side, as if he's trying to escape the weight of the words. "I didn't bury anything," he mutters. "You didn't stop it either," she says. "You saw it happen, and you let it." The wind picks up, rattling the shutters and sending a soft shudder through the air. He takes another step closer, the tension between them thickening with every breath. The sheriff's hand hovers near his gun again, but he doesn't draw it. Not yet. "You'll regret speaking," he says, his voice low but carrying the sharpness of a man who's spent too long pretending he hasn't done terrible things. She doesn't flinch. "Not as much as I'd regret staying quiet." The silence stretches between them like a rope pulled tight. He looks at her for a long moment, as if weighing whether to take another step, to try and force the answer out of her. But he knows it's pointless. He knows she won't give him what he wants. Finally, he exhales long and slow, the fight draining out of him. "It's done," he says. She nods, as if she's been expecting those words all along. They both know it's over now, that whatever he came here for has been left behind. She holds the baby closer, her fingers brushing the soft fabric of the blanket, a small, quiet sigh escaping her lips. The sheriff doesn't move for a moment, but his eyes drift toward the well, the thing that has haunted them both. Without another word, he turns, stepping off the porch, boots crunching in the dirt. His silhouette fades against the lightning sky, moving away from the house, moving away from them. She watches him leave without saying anything more. Inside, the fire crackles softly, a light in the otherwise still room. The house feels emptier now, the weight of the moment still hanging in the air. The baby stirs in her arms, but doesn't wake. She glances down at the small face, peaceful in sleep, and for a moment, the world feels quiet again, like it's holding its breath. She stands there for while looking out the window at the land stretching beyond, the wind gently rustling the grass. Everything feels like it's holding its breath, waiting for the next thing to come. She moves to the front door, checking the bolt one last time before securing it with a final click. There's nothing left to say, nothing left to do. She turns back to the room and looks around. "This'll do," she says quietly, to no one in particular. Her words hang in the air, carrying a strange sort of finality with them. She walks toward the table, where the baby sleeps, the quilt wrapped snug around her. The light from the stove casts long shadows across the floor, and for a moment, everything feels like it's settled, like the dust has finally started to settle. The camera lingers on the closed well in the yard, the rope still hanging, swaying slightly in the breeze. The sound of the baby's quiet breathing fills the space, but if you listen closely, there's another sound. Faint, but unmistakable. A cry. Not from the baby, from somewhere deeper, somewhere darker. It's carried on the wind, and for a second, it feels like it never really left at all. But she's not running anymore. She's not hiding. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough to keep the darkness at bay.